Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today for another Twilight Zone video in my Twilight Zone ranking series, where I rank every episode of the original Twilight Zone from my least favorite to my favorite. Today I'll be talking about number 43, The Howling Man, written by Charles Beaumont and directed by Douglas Hayes. This is a season 2 episode, and as always there will be spoilers. So, The Howling Man is a classic and memorable Twilight Zone episode in my opinion. While I would say most Twilight Zone episodes are either science fiction or fantasy based, I would say The Howling Man is closer to horror, and I think it's very effective. H.M. Wynant is fine as David Ellington, but John Carradine steals the show as Brother Jerome, in my opinion. So, this episode starts with a man named David Ellington, and he's lost and seeking shelter from the bad weather, and he finds an old castle. And I have to say the set design is really great in this episode. So at this point a monk comes and answers the door and says there are no visitors, but eventually Ellington is let inside, and in the meantime he is hearing howling noises which are very, very disturbing. So eventually Ellington meets a man named Brother Jerome, who seems to be in charge of this whole place, and Ellington is told to leave at this point, but he collapses when he tries to do so. So Ellington wakes up and sees another man in the cell, and the man says that he's done nothing wrong and that the monks, beat him with a staff. So at this point, Ellington talks to Brother Jerome again. Ellington says he will call the police because of what's going on, but Brother Jerome tells Ellington what is really going on and that the locked up man is really the devil in disguise, and that only the staff is keeping him from being set free, and supposedly keeping this man locked up has kept the peace as well, which is interesting. So now Ellington has a dilemma on who and what does he believe. So Ellington plays along, tells Brother Jerome okay, but eventually he sneaks away as he is being watched, and Ellington winds up freeing the imprisoned man, and in one of the Twilight Zone's most memorable scenes, in my opinion, he transforms into the devil. And I have to say, this is a creepy, disturbing, and very well done scene, and it's probably the closest Twilight Zone ever came to a horror movie. So, Brother Jerome finds out what Ellington does now that the Howling Man has been set free, and Ellington now regrets it, and Brother Jerome tells him that that's man's greatest weakness, is failing to recognize this type of evil. And in a final scene, Ellington is telling this whole story to a maid. Apparently he's been tracking this man that he let loose down. It's seemingly been for years, and he tells the maid not to release this man under any conditions. But as the maid hears howling, she lets him free. So it looks like all this is going to start all over again, and I guess the Howling Man is still out there. So a very creepy and disturbing episode, which is truly upsetting in a few places. If there's a nitpick or a slight weakness to this episode, for an atmospheric episode, I do think it's a bit talky in a few places. But overall, The Howling Man is a very effective and memorable Twilight Zone story, and it's pretty unique as well, and that's why it ranks for me at number 43 on the list. As always, feel free to leave me a comment on whether you like this episode, The Howling Man, or not. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.